Today, we're going to look into the digital mirror. We're going to talk about the science behind that feeling you get when you're scrolling through social media.
You know the feeling, right? You open up an app, hoping to connect, but you end up closing it feeling, a little flat, a bit behind, just not great. It's a really common experience, and I promise you, it is not just in your head.
Well, that little feeling, that little pang of envy, or just feeling like you're not enough, science actually has a name for it: social comparison. It's a totally fundamental part of being human, but our digital world has basically put it on steroids. So, let's talk about the comparison trap. How does this thing actually work? Well, to really get what's happening on our screens, we first have to understand what's going on inside our own heads. Okay, so let's rewind. Way back in 1954, long before the internet, a psychologist named Leon Festinger figured something out. He said that we all have this built-in, fundamental drive to know where we stand. And how do we figure that out? Simple. We measure ourselves against other people. It's how we size up everything, from our job performance to our personal beliefs. But here's where it gets really interesting. It turns out that not all comparisons are created equal. The theory actually breaks them down into two key categories, and knowing the difference is absolutely crucial for understanding how all this affects us. First up, there's the direction. Think about it. You've got upward comparison. That's when you're looking at someone who seems to have it all figured out. The better job, the perfect vacation, the whole deal. And that can be motivating, but it can also make you feel pretty inadequate. The flip side is downward comparison. That's when we look at someone who maybe isn't doing as well, and, it often gives our own self-esteem a little boost. And then you've got the motive. Why are you comparing in the first place? Is it about ability, or is it about opinion? Ability comparisons are all about competition. They're about ranking yourself. It's that constant question: am I better? Am I smarter? More successful? But opinion comparisons, they're totally different. They're about connection. Do we think the same way? Do we share the same values? It's not about being better, it's about finding your tribe. So, okay, we've established that we are all hardwired to compare ourselves to others. It's just what we do. But what happens when you take that natural human tendency and you plug it into the 24/7 algorithm-fueled world of social media? Well, it becomes a massive amplifier. Social media completely changes the game. This isn't just glancing over the fence at your neighbor's new car anymore. This is a constant, never-ending fire hose of curated moments. People are doing what researchers call selective self-presentation. Fancy term, but it just means they're only showing you the highlights. So what's the result? Our feeds become a highlight reel of everyone else's life, which basically creates a powerful engine for constant upward comparison. And the results of this are pretty clear. The research shows that the more time we spend scrolling, the more we start to believe that everybody else is happier and has a better life than we do. It's like we're constantly comparing our own behind-the-scenes footage to everyone else's greatest hits montage. And listen, this isn't just a vague feeling or some old theory. There is hard data on how this affects our self-worth. So let's take a look at what the research actually says about the impact on our self-esteem. So a 2020 study got really specific about this. When they broke it all down, they found this incredibly striking pattern. It turns out that comparing yourself upwards and comparing your abilities were both seriously linked with lower self-esteem. But what about the other types? Comparing downwards or comparing opinions? Turns out they found no significant connection to self-esteem at all. So how big of an effect are we talking about here? Well, get this. That same study found that just those two types of comparison, upward and ability-based, could alone explain almost 26% of the difference in people's self-esteem levels. That is a huge chunk. It just shows you how powerful these specific kinds of comparison really are. And this wasn't just a one-off finding. A more recent study from 2022 that focused on young women using Instagram found a really similar, dramatic pattern. You can just see it right here. The self-esteem of the people who almost always compare themselves to others on the app was way lower than those who only did it once in a while. That same study even drilled down into specific kinds of content, like all that fitness inspiration stuff we see everywhere. And they found that the women who were frequently looking at this type of content, which, let's be real, is a perfect storm of upward ability-based comparison, also reported having lower self-esteem and being less satisfied with their own bodies. So, what are we supposed to do with all of this information? Look, the goal here isn't to just trash technology or say social media is evil. It's about understanding our relationship with it and maybe
rethinking what we see when we look in that digital mirror.
When you really boil it all down, the issue is pretty straightforward. Comparing ourselves is a totally normal human thing to do. But platforms that are literally designed around images and achievements and perfect appearances, they just give us endless, non-stop opportunities to do it in the ways that are the most damaging to us. And that brings us to what might be the single most powerful takeaway from all of this research. The problem isn't the act of comparing, it's the type of comparison that these platforms push us towards. The data is crystal clear. It's that upward, ability-based comparison that is consistently linked to lower self-esteem. So the key really is to become way more aware of how we're doing it.
So I want to leave you with a little thought experiment. The next time you're scrolling, just pay attention. Notice your own habits. Are you ranking your abilities against someone else's? Or are you trying to connect over shared opinions? Because consciously trying to shift your focus from, am I better, to, do we agree? Well, that could fundamentally change the reflection you see in that digital mirror.